Good evening, everyone. My name is Martin O'Farrell. I'm the proud superintendent of this school district, and I'd like to welcome all of you on behalf of my Board of Education. And with us tonight, my Board of Education, I have the Board President, Ken Cook, our Vice President, Kevin Gleason, and trustees, Marie Brown, Patricia Harron, Karen Kesnick, Donna Moa, and Nick Vero. The best board in the world. Let's hear it for them. On behalf of them, I'd like to welcome all the dignitaries that are here with us this evening, and a special welcome to all the parents, educators, and students from the school districts in Senator LaValle Senatorial District, and any other guests that are with us from Long Island this evening. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping items. In the unlikely event that we would have to evacuate, the event of an emergency, you see the exits in the back and on the side of the stage. Also, if you have any sort of a wireless device or cellular device, you need to shut it off or put it on airplane mode. We have wireless mics tonight, and if you don't, because the mics still interfere with the sound system. Also, before we start, special thanks to a couple of people. The principal of this terrific school, Mr. Joe Steidel and his staff. I want to thank them for coordinating this event. And also to Jeannie Weber and our school from Eastern Suffolk Boasies. You know, we have this being streamed live on Senator LaValle's website, and you know, actually have overflow room, and they've been so helpful with the technology this week. So thanks to Eastern Suffolk Boasies and all the for your help. For nearly 40 years, Senator LaValle has represented over 30 East End school districts in Albany. He has been a staunch advocate for education and a friend to the districts he represents. Here at ESM, you can see the banners up here. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. We're new. We're the newest district in the state of New York. And we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Senator LaValle. More than a decade ago, he met with leaders of the Eastport School District and the South Manor School District. And they came together, leading to the merger and what today is the Eastport-South Manor Central School District. Senator LaValle, I just want you to know we'll always be grateful to you for the work you've done for the children here at ESM and for all the districts in your senatorial district. No further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Senator Kenneth.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank you and the Board of Education and Eastport-South Manor for wonderful students. And by the way, we're here tonight because it's all about the students. My staff has worked tirelessly to make sure that we learn from some of the other meetings and that we made it as good as we could, spent a lot of hours doing and redoing things, and I know there are people in this room who have communicated throughout. I want to thank, I don't know if there are people in the overflow audience, but to them, for all of you during this week to be here tonight. I just want to introduce my colleagues in government who are here, some of you in great deal. Right? Assemblyman-elect Anthony Palumbo from North Fork. Dave Steinerman is here. Assemblyman Ed Hennessy was here. I want to thank very much Commissioner King for being here, Chancellor Harold Kidd. The Chancellor is the Chancellor of the University of the State of New York and is chair of the 17-member Board of Regents. There are 13 is Regent Roger Tillis from the 10th Judicial District. I want to say that this is a very historic moment because I cannot remember when both the Chancellor and the Commissioner have come to a meeting to listen to parents, students, and also educators. So this is a very critical and important meeting. We started a process, and many of you have gone to many of the meetings. We started a process here in Suffolk County with Senator John Flanagan, who is chairman of the Senate Committee on Education. We held a very, very important meeting at Suffolk Community College at the Brentwood campus. We have had a number of these meetings here on Long Island, and I would tell you that no subject has received the kind of communication between Senate members and Assembly members after the process is completed, what our expectations will be. Today, being a former teacher and administrator, and you're going to see this out of me a little bit tonight, we have some rules that I just want everyone to remember. Because we want everyone to get a maximum amount of information and input and dialogue so that we need some rules. Number one, we have invited very special guests. And so, as we do in our home, when we invite guests, we will be respectful of them. We can be passionate tonight about our views, but I do not expect, because we are in Eastern Suffolk County, I do not expect that anyone, whether they're on the stage or in the audience, will either humiliate or ridicule anyone's views. The students, the teachers, will manage the youth, and people will be asking questions. They will be pulling them up to the podium. And one of the things that I wanted to say today, unfortunately, there was a story that questions were screened. Questions were not screened. I have no idea what the questions are. I have a list of individuals asking the questions, but we learned from prior meetings about screening questions. This is where I'm going to come in the students. We have rules. So if anyone in the evening breaches any of the rules, which means be respectful, you can have all the passion you want. But when or one of the students raises their hand like this, I would like the audience to say, to remind someone who's breaching the rules, to simply say, remember the rules. Now, can we practice that? Ready? Remember the rules. The last thing that I want to say is that there are students here in the audience, and I think we want students to come away with reading in a positive way. So the format is we have this broken up into 4 areas: the Common Core implementation, assessment, testing, APPR, and data collection. And students will be having individuals come up. There will be no more than 6 or 7 questions at a time. And after that, the commissioner will have 5 minutes to answer those questions that have been made. So that's where we are. Students, are you ready? Okay.
Meeting is yours.
Kathleen Heather, Rocky Point. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. Okay. My issue with Common Core is related to the design and the core implementation of its rollout. I am deeply concerned for children grades 6 through 9. Increased rigor is acceptable when the student shows a true academic gift and the emotional intelligence to handle a more rigorous caseload. In most cases, children are struggling with their current curriculum and don't possess the concept mastery to be successful in a more rigorous academic setting. For example, 250 children in Rocky Point, 8th graders, took the math assessment test this year. 16% of those children passed. We had 70 of those children take the 9th grade accelerated math regents exam and pass. So my point is, if they're tested on mastery, they did well. When tested on rigor, they did poorly, and this should be a red flag. This is not a one-size-fits-all education system. There are many different careers, and there are many different colleges. Some kids are going to be ready for some, and some might be ready for all. But if this rigor keeps up without true mastery, the dropout rate will be alarming. Completely defeating the purpose of our children in mind. If you have a chance to take any of the exams in engageny.org, I suggest trying a 9th grade math. I'm curious if you've seen it. It's a 35-year mathematician, administrators, and a few engineers couldn't figure it out. Setting kids up to fail is damaging to their self-esteem. My second issue is that the Common Core learning standards clearly states that speaking and listening skills are 2 most important aspects of college and career readiness. But they're the 2 key components that are left off the assessment this year. How can you accurately rate progress from a teacher or a student when your test doesn't even measure your own standards? You are throwing a soccer ball in the middle of a football game and expecting everyone to do well. When no one understands the rules, the vision isn't clear, and the game has changed course midstream. Thank you for your time.
I welcome the concept of rigorous standards that can help to ensure quality of education across our country. As an undergraduate, I was immersed in the work of the children. While the standards for document together in an atmosphere of ease and grace. Instead, it is becoming a place where anxiety, stress, and uncertainty shadow our days. I'm not suggesting that we throw the baby out with the bathwater and abandon all the work that has been done, because all change and growth carries with it growing pains. What we ask Dr. King is a reevaluation of the current situation, keeping at the forefront of your thought processes that learning for young children in particular should foremost be joyful and exciting, while creating intellectual curiosity that isn't drowned out by anxiety and fear. Please tell me how you plan to assist us in accomplishing this.
Julie Lofsted, Hampton Bays.
Commissioner King, we have heard testimony from teachers, superintendents, social workers, and parents about how Common Core is hurting our children. Testimony that has been repeated over and over again at each of these forums. Commissioner King, can you explain to me why our children aren't as important to you as they were to the Mattel Corporation? Mattel recalled 9 million toys, costing the company $30 million. The toys were recalled because they were potentially harmful to our kids. Can you tell me why our kids aren't as important to you as they were to the Peanut Corporation of America? They recalled almost 4,000 different products at a cost of over $1 billion. Not because every product was contaminated, but because the company realized that the potential for harm was present. These companies put their customers ahead of their bottom lines because their products were flawed and the companies knew it was the right and prudent thing to do. Commissioner King, I want to know why you aren't willing to admit Common Core is flawed and that these flaws need to be fixed or the program scrapped so that our children aren't further subjected to more inappropriate curriculum, confusing homework, and all the testing that means absolutely nothing to our kids. Parents all over New York are asking you, begging you, why don't you recall Common Core? But you aren't listening. Why aren't you listening? Why are you in such a rush to go forward with a program that many agree has numerous problems? Why not take a step back and reassess? But you have repeatedly said no. No, you will not change your course. Commissioner King, you once said that your drive comes from a sense of urgency to create for other children the refuge you once found in school. Well, Commissioner King, school is no longer a refuge for our children. Our children are stressed. Our children are stressed. Our children are sick. Our children feel stupid. Commissioner King, here is my question. Why is it that our children are expendable to you?
Catherine Collegine, Riverhead.
Hello, my name is Catherine Callahan. I am the mother of a first grader in the Riverhead School District. Riverhead is a community of diversity in politics, religion, race, cultures, economics, and personal philosophies, an example of the melting pot of America. The very concept of the melting pot, along with thinking for myself, taking action when I feel it is appropriate, and choosing to tolerate differences in the vast expanse of types of intelligence among all the varying groups of people, were instilled in me by the very capable and educated teachers of the New York State public school system. Though I did succeed academically within the system, it was the values of the diversity of ideas that have strongly influenced who I am as an American and adult in the world. I believe the Common Core curriculum is a direct threat to the diversity of what families and communities may value for their children. Grade school should be a time to explore options to where their strengths may lie without the threat of compromising their forming confidence and self-perception if they do not conform. With so many teaching models here in the information age, it seems so illogical to be choosing such a restrictive model as the Common Core curriculum. I ask you, how does the Common Core curriculum support our developing artists, craftsmen, athletes, and students of philosophy to strive for success in their futures as beneficial citizens in American culture? Thank you.
Bill Dawson, West Hampton Beach.
Good evening. My name is Bill Dawson, and I am a senior high school English teacher at West Hampton Beach High School. I'm also a parent of a first grader and a preschool student. As an English teacher and a witness to those students who are in the process of leaving high school and those students who are in the process of beginning their formal education, I'm keenly aware of the role that literacy plays in a child's educational development. There is research, as I'm sure you're aware, that asserts that a child's vocabulary and reading comprehension skills as an 8th grader may be an accurate predictor of future success, including earnings potential in the workplace. Other research suggests that as early as 4th grade, we may be able to predict a student's future success. And there are even some hypotheses that even more boldly declare that the first few years of life may forecast a child's lot in life. Language acquisition is cumulative. And so once the years are counting and the proverbial ball gets rolling, some students may be equipped with the literacy skills necessary to meet the challenges of the standards, but predictably, many students, particularly English language learners and special education students, will be left behind, and they will be left behind early. Students in pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade are on the front lines of exposure to the Common Core standards. Parents are obviously also impacted. My question is, what can the state do to support parents of pre-K and K through 2 students with these rigorous standards, especially these parents of students who are ELL or special ed, parents who are finding it difficult to help their children with their increased literacy challenges that these new standards pose? What additional opportunities are there, or will there be, for dialogue between the state and the superintendents and teachers that could result in long-term solutions for districts and for parents to help our very youngest children who are most in need? You have upped the ante with the Common Core, but I believe also must take a proactive lead to help ensure that it is responsibly implemented. It's my hope that you sincerely reflect upon the very real and practical concerns that educators and parents have who are charged with the task of putting these standards into action for our very youngest students. Thank you.
Robert Sweeney, Mount Sinai.
Commissioner King, Regent, and Chancellor, I have attended your meetings. I have listened to your online presentations. Are you listening? The people of our communities are the ones that are the decision makers. The authority of Curriculum rests in the hands of the local school boards, the teachers, and the communities. I have listened to parents. I have heard their voices. They are seeing their children break because you have mismanaged the rollout of Common Core. You have chosen to bring it out in every single grade with no educational purpose, with only political purpose. I am not going to allow that. This is coupled with a testing schedule that breaks the children, not educates them. We have the authority by statute and trusted tradition to have curriculum within our school district. I listen to the parents. I've heard their voices. I have sat with them. It is destroying our children. You are breaking them. I asked you, allow our teachers to teach and not be proctors. Allow our students to be in school and love learning. Do not make them learn how to take a test. Get the bureaucrats out of my teachers' way.
Chris Tice, Sag Harbor.
Hi, my name is Chris Tice. I'm the Vice President of the Sag Harbor Board of Education, but tonight I speak on behalf of my 3 children and the parents and children throughout New York State. While I applaud the goals of creating higher math standards, the implementation of the Common Core is fundamentally flawed. Across the state, there has been an outcry of frustration. Here is feedback on Common Core math curriculum from historically high-achieving math students and their parents from my district and others. A parent shared with me, my son, who has always been very good in math, now feels like he is incapable of success and he feels dumb. He now hates math and has lost interest in pursuing it entirely. A second parent shared, quote, "When my daughter comes home from school, the first topic we tackle is math. As a 7th grader, she can have 1 to 1.5 hours of math of homework a night when it makes sense to her. But if she's struggling with the topic, as we often do to even try to help her, it takes hours longer. She may have many other subjects of homework every night, but those are suffering, including ELA, and math has taken over the landscape. She now hates math, and it breaks my heart." Another mother lamented that her 9-year-old son is so stressed over math that he cannot sleep at night, and in fact, she is seeking counseling for him. This is a child who has historically been an 8 math student. And lastly, a 10-year-old girl had asked her mother if she could not go to school because of math. Not to skip it tomorrow, not to skip it next week, but to skip it forever. Why has this happened? The Common Core math curriculum simply has more material required to cover than time available. The pace in which teachers and students must cover the material is simply too fast for most students to successfully master. Additionally, the math modules are so scripted, 2 minutes to hand out your papers, 5 minutes for questions, but no more, that it affords little flexibility to address specific classroom and student needs, concerns, and even special teaching moments and opportunities. You have created a scenario of stressed out students, quickly turning them into children who dread school and hate math. Shame on you. This should never have happened. This should never have happened and was completely predictable and preventable. So here's my question. Please tell us specifically how you are going to fix this and what specific timeline these fixes will be implemented. Thank you.
Thanks. Let me first thank everyone in the room for taking the time to be here for this conversation. Thank the Senator and other legislators for hosting us this evening. Certainly thank Eastport-South Manor for a great visit to the schools today and for hosting this evening's forum. There are a variety of issues raised across the questions, and I'll try and just address a few so that we have time for other comments. First, I have to say there's a great gap between the conversation tonight and what is happening in the schools, in the classrooms that I visit that are doing the Common Core.
Excuse me. Given it is really important, you've asked some important questions, it's important to let the commissioners speak. You have asked some really important questions, and
the responses are consistent because what's happening in classrooms is consistent. In the classrooms where Common Core, hold on, in the classrooms where Common Core is happening, where Common Core is happening in the way that the standards describe. Students are writing more. Students are reading more challenging texts and talking about those texts with their classmates and with their teachers, and students are doing more problem solving in math. Let me clarify a few of the issues that have been raised. One, that the Common Core in New York is being phased in over a 7-year period. The standards were adopted by the Board of Regents in 2010. The first 3rd through 8th grade assessments that reflected the Common Core were given in spring of 2013. The changes to the high school Regents exams begin this year and phase in over a 4-year period. The class of 2017 will be the first class required to take Common Core Regents exams. That's a 7-year, that's a 7-year, that's a, over the course of that 7-year phase-in, there are a variety of supports that have been put in place, but I share the concern that there need to be more supports in terms of professional development and support for parents as they adjust to the standards. The standards.
John, you know, let me say a couple of things. Most of you know that I happen to agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I gotta say, the demeanor and the responses that you're giving and not allowing talk that you disagree with, and I might disagree with. But it's really important. You've got students here. Is this the way you want your students to continue? As I said, I agree with a lot of what you said. But I think it's only fair to let John and Merrill talk. And listen to them. We will try to listen to you. I have been listening for a long time. So please, you know, you've got kids here. Try to, this is not the United States Congress, and we want to have some demeanor.
So a number of the questions that were raised were around curriculum. I want to be very clear. Curriculum decisions remain local decisions. They have always been local decisions. The curriculum decisions are made locally. Every district has to decide what curriculum materials they want to use and how they want to adapt those curriculum materials to meet the needs of their students. The curriculum materials that the state is providing are not intended to be a script. In fact, if you go to the cover page where the materials are available on Engage New York, what it says is these materials are not intended to be a script. It is true, there are times that are listed out for different activities as a suggestion, but they're not a mandate, they're not required by regulation. The curriculum materials are a resource for teachers to use. It's also important to say about the curriculum materials, someone brought up the amount of math exercises that are included in the modules. In fact, there are more math exercises in the modules than there's likely to be time for over the course of the year. The idea was to create a resource from which people can choose which math exercises to do, how much time to give to them. The materials don't suggest getting through what everyone can get through in class and then assigning everything else for homework. That's not the idea. The idea is to have more resources there than may be needed over the course of the year to allow choice among those resources. The curriculum materials, again, are designed to be a resource, to be adapted to meet the needs of the students. Someone said, well, we should phase in the Common Core starting with kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. The challenge is that for our students, when they graduate from high school, they're accountable for the knowledge and skills that the Common Core requires. Whether it's the placement tests that determine if they can take credit-bearing college courses or the expectations of employers throughout the state, students are expected to have the kinds of reading skills in fiction and nonfiction, the kinds of math problem-solving skills that the Common Core requires. And the challenge for every state across the 45 states that are implementing the standards is to figure out how to balance the urgency of trying to ensure students have the skills they need when they leave high school with a reasonable pace of implementation. The regents and departments settled on a 7-year phase-in to try to balance those competing demands, the urgency for students and the need for a reasonable pace of implementation. Someone suggested, well, higher standards mean less joyful instruction. They don't need to. You can have higher standards and joyful instruction. I saw today in classrooms that I visited here at Eastport-South Manor. No, I saw in classrooms today joy in learning and rigor in learning. Those aren't opposites. No. And the standards can be implemented. The standards can be implemented in a way that gets at both. Someone asked about field testing of the standards. The K through 2 English language arts materials that the state selected not only reflect decades of research on the role of vocabulary and background knowledge in students' early literacy, but actually have been extensively field tested. The core knowledge materials have been extensively field tested. The core knowledge materials have been in use, not just in New York, but throughout the country for many years. Now, they have continued to adapt and adjust the materials from what they have learned in classrooms in New York State from work with New York State educators. But those materials have been used to great success with students across the country. When you go to a bookstore, you often see shelves filled with the books, what every second grader needs to know, what every third grader needs to know. That's based on some of the very same research that drove the development of the core knowledge materials. But the core knowledge materials aren't mandated. That is a local decision. That's a local decision about curriculum. Now let me make a few points about assessment. One, the state tests that we give in New York are the tests that are required by federal law. 3rd through 8th grade English language arts and math, science at the elementary and middle level, and all states are required to give high school exams in English, math, and science. The only exams that we give as New York State beyond those that are required by federal law are the U.S. History Regents exam and the Global Studies exam. Those are the state tests, have been for nearly a decade. But I agree that there has, not just in New York, but around the country, as a result of a variety of state and local pressures, there has emerged a culture of testing more than we need, of testing more than the minimum necessary to inform good decision making. And so the challenge for all of us as an education sector is to try to figure out how we make adjustments to the amount of assessments given to make sure that we have the minimum that we need to inform good decision making. Now at the state level, some adjustments that we are making based on feedback we've gotten not just from these forums, but from educators and parents over the last year. We have asked the U.S. Department of Education to allow us to have 8th grade students who are taking accelerated math, who are taking the Regents math, to not take the 8th grade state test. We will need the U.S. Department of Education to approve that, but that is an adjustment that will matter for many 7th and 8th graders across the state who are required to take the algebra exam. We are in the process, in our waiver from No Child Left Behind, of asking the U.S. Department of Education for permission to adjust our assessment policies around students with disabilities. The federal law, hold on, let me explain. The federal law requires that 1% of students only 1% of students be allowed to take the alternate assessment. Beyond that 1%, the U.S. Department of Education around the country has allowed states to have another 2% of students that take a modified assessment. We've not done that in New York, but other states have. The federal government is actually in the process of eliminating that 2% modified assessment rule because of a concern from the civil rights community and students and advocates for students with disabilities that students taking those modified assessments were not being exposed to the general education curriculum. So we are in the process of asking the U.S. Department of Education to allow us to have that 2% of students take tests at their instructional level rather than their chronological age. That is an important change, but it will require the permission from the U.S. Department of Education. In terms of the tests that the state gives, we have a budget request that we will make.
You know what? The waiver request is going in January or early February, and the feds know it's coming, and we'll see. But believe me, we plan to advocate.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So two last points in terms of the testing that the state does. Again, we only give the tests that are federally required, but one of the things that we can do is to try to reduce field testing, and we have a budget request that we'll make that will allow us to reduce field testing, which will reduce testing time for students. We also recently announced that we are reducing the number of questions and reducing the testing time on the 3rd through 8th grade assessments. The balance that every state needs to strike, it's not the same number of questions, it's fewer questions, shorter time. The balance every state needs to strike, is there are many competing questions around assessment. Often people say we should have more writing on the assessment. We should have more open-ended questions on our assessments. But that means more time. And so there's always a balance to be struck, and every state strikes that balance slightly differently. Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Cindy Morabito, Eastport-South Manor.
Hi. I don't have the same stories that many people have expressed at these forums. My own children are currently faring the Common Core pretty well, However, I still strongly believe that something needs to change. When I first learned about the Common Core, I was excited, and I believe that we should raise our standards. But we should not be cramming a square peg into a round hole and forcing all children to learn in the same ways. I teach children with learning disabilities and believe that this is like getting a gift every day about learning about the human spirit. Children who don't learn in the typical ways have such unique qualities. They know perseverance like none of the typical learners ever will, as they often struggle every minute of every class. They struggle just to read the words on a page that look like a foreign language or an image displayed on a mirror. They struggle to tune out the tapping pencil, the shuffling papers, the gum chewer in the seat behind them. These noises to a child with a learning disability could be equated to a sound of a train coming through the room to a typical learner. Then there are the fluorescent lights, the interruptions, the struggle to sit still for long stretches of time, and the little voice inside that says, "You'll never get this, you're stupid." This is what a child with a learning disability comes to class with every single day. I know you aren't hearing the people of New York who have been reduced to being ticked off mommies, but I'm hoping that you can have some shred of understanding of what it must be like to walk in the shoes of a child with a learning disability. If you keep pushing the Common Core the way it is now, you will be dimming the lights of so many children. We will lose this unique and amazing population of children who have perspective and understanding that many of us will never know. It should be obvious to you by now that there are huge flaws with the Common Core. My question is, why do you refuse to admit that maybe, just maybe, that this wasn't planned properly and it needs some work? Why aren't you listening? Are we not a large enough group? Our numbers are growing every day. Are we not angry enough? Because we can get angrier. Are we not loud enough? Because we can and we will get louder. Please, please show the people of New York and the others around the country who are watching that you don't have a wallet where your heart should be. Pull New York State from race to the top and rework our standards. Show us that money is not as important to you as our children and that all children matter. Thank you.
Bill McGrath, Shoreham, Wading River.
Hi, I'm Bill McGrath, Shoreham, Wading River, where I'm proud to serve as the community as a trustee, and I'm the current president of the Board of Education. I'm a product of public schools and an image of the American dream. I am the first holder of a bachelor's and doctoral degree in my family, and these I have built on the foundation of public education. And what has it given me? It's given me the ability to pursue my dreams and the opportunity to work with and know Nobel laureates. But I'm deeply troubled about the current approach to public education and how these changes impact our kids. Dr. King, you have said a number of times that we cannot slow down the implementation of Common Core standards and related APPR testing and evaluation, or alter them because these reforms are vital to the future of every student in New York. You said that no schools or districts, no matter how successful they can be allowed to do anything differently because the standards and accountability methods are so wonderful. But if all this is true, how can it be that you, as well as every regent but one, sends his or her children to private schools that do not embrace the so-called reforms? If these reforms are so vital to every student's future, why shouldn't the regents and the commissioners want their own children to experience them? If these reforms are not that vital, then why not let local schools decide whether and how to reform the curriculum and assessments just as private schools do? And any time I have remaining, I want to proceed to the students who have questions that are behind me. Thank you.
Mike Ratty, West Hampton Beach.
Good evening. My name is Mike Radday. I'm the superintendent of schools of the West Hampton Beach School District. First, let me thank Senator LaValle and his staff for arranging this forum tonight, and Superintendent Mark Nacero and Eastport-South Manor for hosting us. Commissioner King, we truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I know these meetings have not been easy. The West Hampton Beach community and our teachers have always embraced high standards. Our teachers, with the utmost professionalism, skill, and dedication, have faced the challenges of the Common Core in their classrooms. I assure you that none of them is opposed to higher standards or a fair accountability system. However, there have been many missteps in the rollout of the Common Core that have detracted from our ability to successfully implement the new standards in our schools. A more gradual phase-in of the standards would provide our students an opportunity to develop the prerequisite knowledge and skills necessary for their success. It would give our teachers time to engage in meaningful professional development so that they in turn can provide our students with the highest quality educational experiences in the classroom. Perhaps the biggest misstep was the rush to administer Common Core aligned assessments in our state. We're administering these assessments to students who have not had adequate time to engage in the learning these new standards require in the classroom. We let our students down by setting them up for failure. The Common Core aligned assessment should be phased in as students move through the grade levels so that they've had an opportunity to learn in classrooms where the curriculum and instructional shifts have been made. It is misguided to believe that an 8th grader who has learned under the old standards for many years should be given an exam aligned to the new standards immediately. It is even more misguided to then take the results of those exams and tie them to a teacher's evaluation. Any potential good in the Common Core is at risk of being lost because of the rush to implement these new assessments and the rush to tie the results of those assessments to APPR. I implore you and the Board of Regents to slow down the implementation of the new assessments and reevaluate the relationship of the new assessments to teacher evaluation. Furthermore, I ask that you more seriously consider the input of those of us in the field, rather than relying so heavily on the input of your team of research fellows. My colleagues and I stand ready to engage in substantive conversation about the future of our schools and reforms that will best serve our students. I'd like to know how you plan to better engage superintendents, principals, teachers, and parents as we move forward with this initiative. Thank you again for being here tonight, Commissioner.
Rocky Point students, William Charmack, Michael Greenberg, Amanda Tessarella, Connor Sick, and Sarah Whitworth.
Hi, my name is Michael Greenberg. I am a concerned student from Rocky Point High School. And Common Core curriculum plans to take away the creative freedoms that teachers currently have. A lot of my favorite teachers use non-conventional ways that wouldn't be approved by Common Core. And rather than being able to tell an interesting story, they're now forced to stick to the facts. Well, everything's fact, but the highest grades possible instead of making the classes more interesting. Why do you feel that this is a benefit of Common Core, and is it really all about the numbers?
As a student and a senior at my high school, I watch my fellow classmates in the lower grades fail constantly, and I help them. Many students look forward to classes with teachers that create diverse, creative lessons that still educate. The Common Core program would force students to expect less from these classes Do you think the Common Core program will help teachers' methods of educating to be more understanding for students with difficulties? If so, can you provide any examples?
To be hello. Oh boy. Good evening, Dr. King. I feel like there has to be a better way to fix our education system. Something is very wrong with our education right now, but I feel like the Common Core is not the answer. And if we are going to do the Common Core, it should not start halfway through with 8th graders or kindergarten, 8th graders or middle schoolers. It should start with kindergarten going on upward. I feel like you are asking too much for these young kids starting halfway through to just learn. Sorry. I feel like you're asking too much for these kids and making them forcing upon the Common Core on them. That's too much stress for a young kid. Also, what does this mean for the AP and honors classes? Are you going to change those too, or what's going on with those? All right, thank you.
As a math tutor, it's difficult to teach algebra when students are having trouble understanding the methods that I've never learned. So then, what is the true purpose of this standardized knowledge? Will it not just suppress students' natural, creative, and innovative abilities as it reins them into one common modality of learning? This will surely affect teachers in the same way. How can teachers give individualized attention to students when they are constrained in their methods?
Hello, my name is Connor Sick, and I'm a senior at Rocky Point High School. And I'm wondering, do you, Commissioner King, have anything to say to the students, parents, and teachers who have been hurt by the poor results from the Common Core evaluations? And if you have anything to say about why failure is being used as a weapon to motivate these students, because as a student who takes school very seriously, failure is not motivational. It hurts.
Kim Hardwick, Cinnamoriches.
Good evening, Commissioner. I am the proud principal of Clayton Huey Elementary in Cinnamoriches School District. In my 22 years of education, there have been lofty goals set by leadership in government, which identified a destination most agreed with. Who would ever want to leave a child behind? However, we had little support in how to get the students there. I may be a lone voice here, but I believe, Commissioner, that your team is the first to put a roadmap into place to assist us in reaching that destination. While educators can create their own map, and that seems to be something that we are forgetting, that we have the power to create our own map using Common Core standards as our compass, you have saved district countless hours and funding we do not have by making these resources available, even if they are simply used as models, and I thank you for that. Most importantly, I applaud the availability of a quality curriculum for all children despite a zip code. Some people want to call that socialism. I want to call that a fine educational system in a beautiful country known as the United States of America. A student last year left my elementary school and moved to Mattituck, where the grade 4 module was being taught as well. On the child's first day, while I am sure he was anxious, he entered his class, saw the module, and said with excitement, "I was just doing this in my last class." I know this because my colleagues in Mattituck were eager to share this wonderful example of how powerful a common curriculum can be. Transiency issues can be minimized, and children in all communities can have access to quality and consistent curriculum. Commissioner, that is what you are accomplishing with the Common Core. The instruction in my school is powerful, not because Engage New York exists, but because my teachers care about their children, and they work hard to create quality instruction from the available resources that they have. They are overwhelmed and they are frustrated. I will not stand here and lie about that, but it is my responsibility to assist them in their frustration and to let them know that we are not using all 4 of the modules, but we are using them as the teachers feel are appropriate for our children. My children are not crying in Clayton Huey. I am very proud to say when I walk into the classrooms, they are smiling. My grade 4 students are enjoying the math modules. Other grade levels are using Envision Math. I get to make those decisions, and I'll wait. And I'll wait some more. I see smiles in my classrooms every day. I am proud of the educators in my building. However, Commissioner, I do want to share one of our frustrations, and I hope that you take this request to heart. Please release the questions from the assessments so they can be transparent for all stakeholders. This would enable teachers to utilize the item analysis data that used to be so beneficial to us, not only in meeting the students' needs, but also to use as professional development in strengthening instruction. Parents also deserve the opportunity to see the actual assessments that their children are exposed to. Thank you for listening. I am an educational leader who respects you and appreciates your vision. And I believe in standing up for what you believe in, even if you are standing alone. Thank you.
Okay. The Commissioner is going to answer the questions, but I would appreciate it if you could let him speak. You came here in part to listen to what he has to say, and he is listening to what you have to say. Commissioner?
There we go. The students asked about teachers' ability to have creative and engaging lessons. And I just want to emphasize again that the Common Core doesn't dictate what lesson has to happen on a given day, what text has to be chosen, what activity has to be done in class. It's a set of standards, a set of aspirations about knowledge and skills. And in every classroom, in every school, educators are going to have to make decisions about how best to realize the aspirations of the standards for their students. One of the questions was about the role of educators in the curriculum work and the assessment work in the work that the department is doing. I want to emphasize that teachers, New York State teachers and principals have been involved in every aspect of the work that we're doing, whether it's the development of the modules or the development of the assessments, reviewing the assessment items throughout the assessment development process, the professional development work that we're doing. 2 weeks ago, there were 1,000 educators from around the state, professional development leads, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, teachers, teacher leaders from across the state who spent a week focused on professional development around the curriculum modules, making the shifts in instruction that are required for the Common Core, and the important issue of building a bridge between where students are and the expectations of the core, which varies. And part of the concern tonight that a number of folks have expressed is around the different levels of readiness of students to meet the expectations of the Common Core. And of course that's true. There's a variety of experiences that students have had and bring with them into the classroom. And the question is, how do we use the instructional time that we have, the materials that we develop to help build better bridges for students between where they are and the expectations of the Common Core, so that they can be prepared to succeed after high school, which we all want for all of our students. On the question about the assessments and the assessment items, one of the challenges we face, all states have to grapple with, is as you build assessments, you have to field test the questions. Whenever you release items, that means fewer items that can be banked for future use in assessments. Some states release a portion of the items, as we do. Some states release no items. Some states release items every couple of years. But all states grapple with this question of how many items to release and balancing that with field testing. We release. We release 25% of the items. For those 25% of items, we actually annotate the items. We explain which answer was correct and why, what possible misconceptions may have led to the incorrect answers. We also release the assessment design documents, including the criteria that are used to select every item, the criteria that are used to select every passage. RICs and district information centers can provide item-level analysis. So standard by standard item-level analysis for students and item-level analysis with the 25% of released items. If our budget request moves forward around the ability to print more forms of the test the way other states do, that will not only lower our field testing time, but also help make it possible for us to release more items. The other balance we have to strike is between the items becoming the standards, becoming the curriculum, as opposed to the standards. The standards describe a set of knowledge and skills. You don't ever want the skills around proportional reasoning to be reduced to last year's question 7. Right? And so one of the challenges that every state faces is the more items you release, the more risk there is that the curriculum becomes defined by those items. So we release 25% of the items, and if we are able to move forward with this budget request, there's the potential that we will be able to release more. Final distinction I just want to make is between the Common Core assessment and the APPR. The Common Core is about a set of standards that can drive instruction. The assessments are really two sets of assessments. There's the state assessments that I described, and then there's a whole series of local decisions about assessments. One of the things the board and department are doing is launching a grant program to support districts in reevaluating the local decisions that have been made about assessments, again, to make sure that the assessments given are the minimum needed to inform good decision making at the classroom, school, and district level. And then there's the APPR, which is set in state law, which defines how teachers will be evaluated and gives tremendous amount. One of the questions was about local control. The APPR law is a local control law. For 20% of teachers, there is a state growth score measuring how students grew on state tests that accounts for 20% of the evaluation. The other 80% of the evaluation is locally determined for those teachers through collective bargaining. For the other 80% of teachers who are not in grades 4 through 8 English language, arts, and math, 100% of the elements of the evaluation are locally determined. It's a local control law. And so when we ask, can we change the evaluation system, or are there changes that need to be made to the evaluation system? Those are really local decision-making questions.
We are now going to go on to the assessment testing questions. There will be 4 questions, and Commissioner, you will respond. Yeah. The next speakers, please.
Charles Russo, East Moriches.
Good evening. Good to see you, Regent Stillis, Chancellor, Commissioner. Thank you, Senator LaValle. Just to get it out front, I think the domains and the modules that you put forward are some of the best material I've seen in 32 years. Now, with that said, I apologize. With that said, I'm not being rude. With that said, I just want to see if you're going to, the people that are yelling at me, I just want to look at them, that's all. With that said, there's a gap between how they're being implemented. What I did learn is listening to all the different comments at these workshops that I wanted to hear exactly what the East Moriches students had to say. Because to me, all the opinions in the room, including my own, are meaningless. I care about what my kids think, my students in East Moriches. So we put a survey together, and we started surveying our students, and basically asked them 2 questions and gave them an opportunity for a comment. The one question was based on, do they like learning whatever the particular topic was that was related to their area? And we went down as low as first graders in grade level. And then we asked the second question of, did they find the work hard or not? Because I think that's where the 2 main concerns have been driven from. And the kids had very simple responses, either not at all, kind of, or yes, for as far as liking the work. The results, obviously, I'm presenting are very positive. So for instance, did you like learning about ancient Greece? 92% of the kids surveyed said yes. 3%, we're talking about curriculum right now, don't be confused. 3% said kind of, 6% said not at all. With regards to an area in the 3rd grade, do you like learning about kids in other countries? 68% said yes, 21% said kind of, 10% not at all. Do you like learning about human rights? Again, 36% said yes, 60% said kind of. Is the work hard? 24% said easy, 62% said okay, 14% said hard. Interesting comments, and this is what's important to me. And you know what, if I had time, I would definitely talk to you about math. I like how we learned about the UDHR, what it stands for. I also like how sometimes the work was hard, but most of the times it was awesome. Jade and I always participating, and we have good answers. In my own opinion, the work is easy. I'm a total nerd when it comes to the UDHR and social studies stuff. My favorite UDHR article is number 14. 2nd grader. What I like about lessons, what I like about these lessons is that I'm learning much more stuff than 1st grade. I love learning about ancient Asia. I mostly love learning about ancient Greece gods and goddesses. These are the best 2nd grade lessons, and Miss Heaney is the best 2nd grade teacher in the whole world. Most of all, I love learning with Mrs. Peterson. I loved great stuff, and the King's new clothes is awesome. Now, with regard to, by the way, I would strongly recommend teachers read a book. It's called Teach Like a Pirate. It's excellent about creativity.
Chuck.
Let me just get to my suggestion. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioner, I just have...
Let everyone take a deep breath. He's finishing up.
I'm finishing up. I got two suggestions for you, Commissioner, because I think the problem, that the way I see it, is there's a gap between the amount of time that teachers need to work and cultivate on professional development and the implementation of the assessment, which has put pressure on people. Just a suggestion for you. Provide 2 scores. It's rather embarrassing. Provide 2 scores on the current state assessment, and you've already gone in that direction this year by sending out that secondary cutoff score. But provide 2 scores from here on out. We all know what's coming down the pike. If you provide 2 scores, one which would become the actual cut score, and then one which would be that abbreviated or revised score, and use that score for APPR purposes, that would take some pressure off moving forward.
Chuck.
Second point, you want me to stop?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me, everyone. Ma'am, just excuse me just one second. I'm in a very awkward position, and just listen to me. I hear what you're saying. I agree with a ton of what you folks have gotten up there to say tonight, and I appreciate you coming forward and saying it. But I have to ask you something, please. This is my home, this school district. We're hosting this. If somebody's in your home and being rude, you have to stand up and say, please stop. So I'm asking you here tonight, we may agree with what people are saying, we may disagree. And I don't think it helps our cause to be rude. Let's listen, let people have their say, let's hear from the commissioner, and let's make it a productive evening. You can yell at me too, you can yell at me later, but please, I think for the benefit of everybody, let's have some decorum. And like they said before, the kids are watching. Thank you.
Before, when I came up to ask my question, I ran short, and I just want to use that time real quick to hopefully get an answer to my question, because you did speak about assessments when the topic was core curriculum. My question is, how does core curriculum support our developing artists, craftsmen, athletes, and students of philosophy to strive for success in their futures as beneficial citizens in American culture? I'm sorry? Okay.
Michael Frisia, Rocky Point.
Good evening. I am Scott Ginther, and tonight I'm standing in for Mike Frisia and representing the teachers of Rocky Point. When presented with the possibility of addressing the state's Commissioner of Education, I initially struggled with what question to ask. Would it be about the senseless APPR system that isn't supported by anyone who actually walks the halls of the school? Would it be a Common Core curriculum that, while having good intentions, is ill-fit when looking at the realities of today's school? How about the issues with student privacy and why all other states are backing down and listening while we are not? Or would it be the underlying push for new curriculum and the corruptness that is at the true core of its existence? You know, the facts that our local media will never dare to report. The decision I have made is to address the state's insistence through assessments on making our children failures. So how? How on earth could your group of experts sit in a room and decide that kids, children, should be made to look like failures? Have you now proven your point that they are not college and career ready? Are you happy now that you have, yes, you, have created a colossal problem that presents itself at dinner tables around this state every night? The problem of children explaining to their parents how stupid they are. Dreams, confidence, futures are being shattered at the expense of what? Where is the good in turning a kid into a failure? And sure, you will show us positive change through your data in coming years in hopes of proving that your system works. Numbers will be manipulated and politics will go on as usual. While that is happening, please try and remember the over 2.5 million kids across New York State that you have trampled along the way. The present day sophomore and juniors whose confidence you are crushing at such a vulnerable age, they won't get a do-over. You'll move on, the governor will look towards bigger and better, your committees will dissolve and start again, and those children will be 25 and looking back at the disaster known as their high school years. So as I walk away tonight, I ask you to mend, fix, adjust, revive with your tests and curriculum the children whose lives you are forever affecting. Confidence and promise drive us as individuals and humans. Please give it back to the children and stop setting them up to fail. Why is failure your answer?
Shelley Walker, Riverhead.
Hello, my name is Shelley Walker, and I'm here tonight as both a concerned parent and a concerned educator. Commissioner King, it has been stated that the purpose of the New York State assessments is to drive the instruction of the classroom teacher. If this is so, could you please explain why educators are given just a single number as a score for each child and have absolutely no access to an itemized analysis of the student's score, which would depict their strengths and weaknesses? Please explain how exactly a single digit would help drive the instruction of each individual child in every single class.
That could be done.
Ken Bossert, Port Jefferson.
Good evening. I would like to thank the Commissioner, the Chancellor, and Regent Sullis for taking the time from this holiday week to spend this time for this important topic. Clearly the passion of those in the community that have come out tonight match that level of importance. I have the unique opportunity to serve as superintendent of schools of the Port Jefferson School District. So not only am I charged with the care for the 1,300 students who attend school there, but also with the 2 that attend school that live within my home. So that is a unique perspective I'm afforded to not only see what's happening within the classrooms, but also what's happening around the dining room table. And Commissioner, you actually already spoke to one of the points that I was prepared to make about what the last speaker spoke about, focusing on the purpose of student assessments. If the purposes we're focused on are to monitor student progress and to inform instruction, I think we do need to refocus our efforts on informing instruction. When we do receive that singular mark in time, it's not providing teachers with the insight and the information that our tests used to glean and allow them to prepare curriculum to meet student needs. In the past, our regional information centers used to provide us with support such as Data Mentor and bars in order for teachers to access specific information and be able to use testing data to plan lessons specific to their students in their class. They're no longer afforded that opportunity, and I think it's something we should really look at to focus on for future improvement. And to that point, when we look at improving instruction, one of the things that I think has gone very well is the implementation of the Charlotte-Danielson rubric to evaluate teacher effectiveness. The Danielson language gives us common vernacular to speak when we speak to our teachers about what we see as strong pedagogical skill in classrooms. But I have to caution you, there was some research conducted within this very school district in 2008 that was published by the Oxford University Press. And what it indicated was teachers who have a high-stakes test present in their classroom score lower on the effectiveness rating than teachers who are teaching free from a high-stakes assessment. So when looking for suggestions in common, I would encourage you to entertain that 3-year moratorium that's been suggested in many different venues so that teachers will have the opportunity to catch up on lesson planning, develop that curriculum that you spoke to being a local decision, and really bring that strong pedagogical practice back into their classrooms. Thank you very much.
People want to know what to do? Talk to the governor.
Speaking regarding assessment, Dennis Shua, Hampton Bays.
Good evening. These forums are an opportunity for you and the Regents to hear and process feedback that results in careful and measured responses to the concerns from the field. So tonight I'd like to ask a specific question about grade 3 to 8 assessment in hopes that you consider crafting a comprehensive response. Over the last month, we have seen the State Education Department to ease test anxiety, amend protocols for testing, and make adjustments that decrease time, submit waivers for test relief, among others. You have said yourself that the ideal testing model is the most minimal testing necessary. The changes I mentioned, however, seem to be dribbling out of state ed, tucked into long memorandums, reported in Newsday after a Regents meeting, or announced in a public forum. It feels piecemeal, and while I appreciate the effort, I'm still nervous because as a principal, I still don't have a healthy sense of the full scope or timing of the changes being considered. We believe in accountability for students, teachers, and administrators, and that when done right and reasonably, give valuable data to act upon. So I ask you, would you consider advocating for a 1-year moratorium on grade 3 to 8 testing so that you and the Regents can carefully process the feedback, consider all amendments to the testing program, and then make adjustments in a fully comprehensive way? Schools already, as a result of APPR, have numerous other data points from which to gauge student progress and building success, like Ames Web and the Scholastic Reading Inventory. Therefore, can't that, at the very least for this year, be enough? This moratorium would considerably remove pressure from our communities as we still maintain a high standard and as we still work in earnest to implement the Common Core standards by tailoring curriculum and instruction to it. Please consider this, Commissioner King. I think it would go a long way to cementing positive change in our schools. Thank you.
Speaking next, Kathleen Skoland, Mattituck.
Good evening, Commissioner King, Senator LaValle, and other state and local representatives. My name is Kathleen Scholin, and I'm the Math Department Coordinator for the Mattituck Junior Senior High School. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you directly about middle school math acceleration. And to be clear, this is more of a curriculum issue than it is an assessment issue. Provisions for the appropriate education of all students is the responsibility of public education in New York State. This includes students with individual educational plans, IEPs, English language learners, ELLs, students with 504 plans, and students under IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Act. And so all students have access to appropriate opportunities supported by high-quality curriculums and instruction. These provisions should also include accommodations for students with above-average ability. For these students have the potentiality to be our highest resources nationally and in a global arena. In Appendix A of the Common Core State Standards for Mathematics, middle school acceleration for students with above ability math talent is discussed, and mathematics standards are separated into an accelerated 7th grade program and an 8th grade Algebra 1 program. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, NCTM, also support acceleration for above ability mathematics students in its publication, The Peak in the Middle, Developing Mathematically Gifted Students in the Middle Grades, published 2010. However, the charge given to the Common Core Incorporated, the developers and writers of New York State's Education Department's adopted mathematics modules, did not include attention to this crucial area of mathematics education. The current mathematics modules on Engage New York are robust, rigorous, and vertically aligned. Our most talented mathematics students deserve to have attention given to their needs as learners. A detailed curriculum for acceleration in middle school mathematics is warranted. Thus, I've formulated my question for you, Commissioner King. Is the New York State Education Department planning to take a leadership role in creating a team of mathematics educators and professionals to give substance to the accelerated 7th grade and 8th grade Algebra 1 programs? Thank you.
Jim Kinnear, Sag Harbor.
Good evening. I've been a math teacher for 29 years, most of which in the Sag Harbor School District. I feel that with where we are right now, that we teachers are in a backseat of a car that's lost. I feel that SED is driving this car. I feel that we teachers have some very good ideas and suggestions, and we're saying them, but we're being ignored as the car continues to get lost. We teachers don't know everything. You have a perspective that's different than ours, and we should appreciate that. But we have a perspective that nobody else has. We are in the classroom every single day. We need to have our thoughts and our ideas represented in an authoritative way in the decision-making that's done at SED. When I started my career, high school math was the same as it was when I was in high school. Students took algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. After a couple of years, state ed decided that we should add more topics and create an integrated math called sequential 1, 2, and 3, which is the opposite of Common Core. Teachers complained at that time, but state ed went ahead anyway. And the math was noticeably less rigorous. After 15 years, the worst thing I've ever seen come out of state ed was math A and B. They took 3 years of math, made it 2 courses, each a year and a half. Students had to take a Regents exam after a year and a half, having 2 different teachers. That lasted only 6 or 7 years. Teachers protested, but state ed went ahead with it anyway. Now, we are back to algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. However, don't confuse this algebra with what I took when I was in high school. This algebra class is an embarrassment. And students need to only answer 1/3 of the test correct to pass. No wonder more students aren't prepared for college and careers. SED has set standards that are too low. Teachers have protested, but SED has gone ahead anyway. When I heard of Common Core implementation, I was enthusiastic about it, taking away 30% of the material and going more deeply into the material at hand. Emphasizing fluency. For the first time, I felt that we were going in the right direction. However, this is not the case. Like you've heard from others, the problem is not the Common Core philosophy, it's the implementation. Too much testing, and for the wrong reasons, connecting to teacher evaluation. We've heard this before. The problem is this event. Although you're putting your time in here listening to us, who we should be talking to is teachers, principals, and superintendents, who then can go up to state ed with an authority to vote and decide upon how to implement Common Core. I would ask you to please comment on this. To implement Common Core in the right way and other issues correctly right the first time in the future, NYSET has asked for a 3-year moratorium on this. In this period of time, will you commit to having 3 present-day classroom teachers, 2 principals, and 1 superintendent on the body that makes decisions on how to implement Common Core and anything else in the future? Thank you.
Speaking next, Terry Kalb, Shoreham Wading River.
Good evening. After a career teaching at BOCES, more than 30 years, I'm a newly retired teacher. You might ask, what am I doing here? I would have thought I would never be here. But since September, I've been growing increasingly alarmed about what I'm hearing from parents who have children with special needs. I was getting panicked calls and messages that kept pouring in. These are some of the messages that I was getting. My autistic child was successfully mainstreamed for 3 years, but now I'm told she needs a self-contained class because she can't keep up with the pace and the content of the scripted modules that they're doing in the classroom. So she can't be there anymore. Another parent tells me, my child's IEP now has goals that are 4 grades above where he's functioning. How can my child learn if with every task and test he's given, he fails? Yet another parent called.
My child with Down syndrome was never a behavior problem. Now she is so stressed, she melts down in school and runs out of the classroom, shoving everything in her path. So, I've come out of retirement to work as a child advocate because I cannot tolerate what has happened to the individual in the IEP and the word appropriate in free appropriate public education. They are being trumped by the Common Core and the cruel insistence that children be taught and tested according to fixed and narrow standards, no matter where they are functioning developmentally. This is illegal, and it must stop. Only now, after the repeated cries of parents and educators, you plan to ask for a limited waiver to allow a very small number of IEP students to be tested at their developmental level instead of their grade level. But this is far too little and too late for most children. There is still the absurd demand that our students be taught impossibly inappropriate content, forcing them to struggle and fail day after day after day. It is unacceptable that DOE at the federal level and NYSID continue the injurious impact of the Common Core and high-stakes testing, especially on our most vulnerable kids. No special ed teachers had input into your grand reforms. Instead, you accuse us of having the soft bigotry of low expectations, of holding back our students. To this I say, how insulting can you be? No one wants more for our special needs children than their parents and their teachers. Every teacher already understands that you don't teach and test children at the level you wish they were functioning at, where they struggle in frustration and fail. The way you do it is you meet them where they are and guide them forward toward building their confidence and meeting success every step of the way at their own pace. And with differentiated instruction. The APPR is already punishing special ed teachers. Some of our most experienced, talented, and dedicated teachers, the ones who are really masters at differentiation and true engagement of special needs kids, even if they have perfect scores on their observations in the classroom, because they teach children that are physically or cognitively or emotionally impaired, and the test scores are going to be low. We know maybe 6% of children passed your tests who have special needs, okay? Those teachers are rated ineffective by mandate. We know that your beloved charter schools filter out the most challenging children to improve their school ratings. I'm almost done. But in our public schools, all children are welcome and all children are taught. So I ask you, this is my question. By the time this experiment is over, who will be left to teach our children with special needs?
Commissioner, do you want to take 5 minutes to respond? And I'm going to ask those asking questions to stay to the 2-minute mark. You're making it difficult for our students. Commissioner?
Sure. Let me start with the question about the relationship between the Common Core and students' development of artistic talents or athletic talents or their development as citizens. The Common Core is designed precisely to help support the creation of learning environments that would support students' development as artists and athletes and citizens. The goal of the Common Core is to help students develop a set of skills around English language arts and math, but it's more than that. It's to help students become strong critical thinkers. It's also to give students the experience of taking on challenging tasks. And no question, we've heard discussion tonight about the challenge that's presented at times by the Common Core, but part of the goal of a good education is to give students opportunities where things are challenging, where they do have to work harder, where they do have to struggle at times. That is a part of learning. When one is becoming a great artist or a great athlete or accomplishing most things in life, it involves challenge and perseverance. And so there is undoubtedly a relationship between academic rigor and students' preparation for the challenges that they'll face in any aspect of life. But so too does the English language arts curriculum that we've developed as a resource emphasize students' exposure to history, to science, to knowledge of the world, to the arts, which play a critical role in the curriculum materials that we've developed. And the regents and the department have a long-standing commitment to the role of the arts and music in students' education and their preparation for life after school. Someone said that the state tests were about failure. I want to be very clear that we don't characterize students getting a 2 as having failed. The goal, how students view the assessment results is a function of how we as the adults frame the assessment results. The reality is,
all right, let the commissioner speak.
The reality is that the assessment results on last year's 3rd through 8th grade assessments are very similar in the outcomes to our NAEP performance, for example, the gold standard for comparing performance across states. And those results are actually very similar to the percentage of students on Regents exams who are, when one of the math teacher from Sag Harbor mentioned the issue of students being able to pass at a relatively low level of skill in the algebra exams. It's true, we know that on the Regents exams, passing doesn't reflect readiness. We know that a score of a 75 or 80 is a much better predictor of students' readiness for the work that is required in credit-bearing college courses. And so we know that about 35% of our students are at that 75, 80 level. About 35% of our students score proficient or advanced on the NAEP assessment. And it is true, about 35% of our students scored proficient or advanced on the New York State 3rd through 8th grade assessments last year. But that is not to say that the students who get a 2 or the student who gets a 65 has failed, but it is to say there is more work to do to ensure that that student is prepared for success at the next level. There was a question about item analysis. I just want to emphasize again, item analysis at the standard level is available through the RICs. Item analysis for the 25% of released items is available through the RICs. And so there is material for teachers to analyze the results of the assessment, in addition to all the assessment design documents and the annotated questions and the samples of student work. And over time, there will be even more material from past tests. There was a question about accelerated math and the modules, and it was a very good suggestion and something we've talked about at the department, the potential that over time we might work with New York State educators in developing a set of accelerated math modules that assume that students will be moving more quickly through the 7th and 8th grade curriculum towards algebra. So appreciate that suggestion. There was a question about the role of teachers and principals and superintendents in the work of the department. I want to emphasize teachers, principals, superintendents from across the state have been involved in all of the work that we've done on Common Core curriculum modules, on the design of the assessments, creating the assessment questions, reviewing the assessment questions, sitting on the standard setting panel of nearly 100 educators that recommended to me and ultimately to the Board of Regents what the threshold should be for proficient on the 3rd through 8th grade assessments. There was a question about students with disabilities and goal setting. I want to emphasize, although the Common Core obviously sets very high aspirations, the goal setting and the development of IEPs has to be done locally through the committees on special education. And our regional technical assistance centers and parent centers are there to support folks in making sure that we build that bridge between where students are and the aspirations of the Common Core.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we go on to the last two subjects, APPR and the data privacy. Chris, what? And I'm going to intervene here on the questions because there's a lot of pressure on the students who are trying to do the right thing, but everyone is just blowing by their 30 seconds and final report. So,
Speaking regarding APPR rather, Chris Hudson, Remsenburg.
Good evening. I am the 3rd grade teacher and the union co-president at the Remsenburg-Spionk Elementary School. We believe that a model of evaluation was mandated upon districts to evaluate teachers before it was completely thought out. We believe that teachers should be held accountable for their performance within the classroom. But isn't that why we have elected boards of education which hire sound administrators who monitor the performance and effectiveness of the teachers in their buildings? When have we lost so much trust? APPR places so much emphasis on local and state assessment results. There are so many outside variables that can affect a child's performance on any given day. Children's days can be shaped by who helped them with their homework, what they had for breakfast or dinner, what time they went to sleep, how they left off with their parents before they came to school, who they sat next to or didn't sit next to on the bus, or what someone might have said to them in the hallway. Do you realize that this is as silly as rating a mechanic on the performance of the cars he fixes without looking at the way his client drives the cars? How can teacher performance be attached to results that are not necessarily valid, on tests that were set up to cause failure because they are assessing a curriculum that has not been fully implemented? How do special education teachers get evaluated fairly when it is impossible for many of their students to score well on the one-size-fits-all curricula and assessments? How can a small school like Remsenburg-Spionk, whose numbers are so small, be fairly evaluated? We usually score in the top percentile year after year, which have helped us to attain a blue ribbon status. Last year, we were evaluated using data from 3 classrooms, not 3 grade levels, but 3 classes, 3 classrooms. Because one class did poorly due to some uncontrollable factors, we have suddenly become an ineffective blue ribbon school. How can this be possible? How can this be fair? Senator LaValle, you have been to our school. You've been and seen us in action. Is this how we come off to you, as an ineffective school? They say statisticians don't like small numbers, but we at Remsenburg-Spionk now know why. I have seen APPR cause anxiety and fear in both students and highly qualified and highly effective teachers. We now truly teach to the test, and our job depends on it. There are so many things APPR doesn't measure. It does not truly reflect the teacher's ability to reach children, make a difference in their lives, and help them succeed at much more than standardized test score. Don't we want our students to be in environments which provide rigor, but do not break them down and make them feel stupid, all in the name of showing growth? Thank you.
Speaking next regarding APPR, Mindy Benz, Riverhead.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen and respond to our concerns. I'm a teacher of language arts. I'm a lover of literature, writing, and education. I'm an advocate for my students. I'm a mother of a 3-year-old. I'm a lot more than an APPR score. It was my belief that APPR would be a balanced approach to formative and summative assessments that is both qualitative and quantitative, and to be used to provide reliable and appropriate information to guide our growth as educators and administrators. I'm wondering then, why are administrators and educators being evaluated on assessments that are outdated methodologically and are not fully Common Core aligned? Though we have been informed that these initial scores supposedly do not negatively impact teachers and administrators, then why are teachers and administrators subjected to filing teacher improvement plans if deemed developing or ineffective? Furthermore, why is there continued employment of faulty companies such as Pearson, known for errors, inconsistent scoring, and continued technological issues, whose exams continue to go against our academic paradigm suggested by the Common Core? But still, teachers and administrators are at the mercy of big box testing companies and emphasis on assessments in which we have no control. This is not quality. One test approach, a 20-point approach, is not quantity. Adopting a rubric that is only requesting the adoption of one rubric approach to assess each individual teacher is not quantity. Being typecasted immaturely as effective or ineffective due to ineffective and developing methods of assessing teachers and administrators is disappointing. We as administrators and educators deserve better. We are more than an APPR score. Thank you.
Speaking next regarding APPR, Joseph Steinmel, DSM.
Good evening. I'm Joe Steinmel. I'm the principal of Eastport-South Manor Junior-Senior High School. Commissioner King, in October of 2011, I joined with many fellow administrators and teachers from across Long Island at the Long Island Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development at their annual fall conference, and you were there too. If you were to ever look at the logo for the association, you will notice that there is an outline of the map of Long Island. And if you were to look closer at the logo, you'll notice that on the map there are the following words: leadership, quality, and professional development. On that day, I sat with many others in what looked to be and sounded like a room filled with quality professional leaders in search of development, just as that logo describes. What I did find strange was the title of the conference, which was Thoughtful Professional Practice in a Time of Crisis. I remember thinking, what calamity has befallen us that I am unaware of? What I soon found was that we were not in a crisis, but one was certainly coming. On that day, you and others made presentations to inform all of the educators and all the leaders on Long Island about how poorly our students were performing, that our teachers needed to improve their instruction, and finally, how APPR would be used as a tool by building principles to ensure that our teachers would improve their instruction. And oh yes, that APPR would be used by the superintendents to ensure that the principals were getting the teachers to improve their instruction. The conference that I referred to on that day also permitted members of the audience to ask your panel questions about the crisis that was coming, a crisis that is facilitated by you and created by the Obama administration using the power of the purse. The power of the purse with millions of dollars in race to the top funds. The money which never really made its way to the districts and the students but remained in Albany to create websites and to hire lawyers to review APPR plans, among other things. I recall meaningful questions and concerns that were expressed to you on that day, and to be honest, were responded to with buzzwords and edicts about compliance and requirements of the state and federal governments. We, the educational leaders of Long Island, were bewildered by your responses that day. You did not inspire us to achieve higher levels of excellence, to do better with our students, and to raise standards. We did not develop on that day. Instead, you lost us.
Unfortunately, all of the same questions and concerns that the educators expressed and discussed on that conference day 2 years ago are still being discussed today. But you did not hear any of us then. You ignored our input and disregarded our concerns. Unfortunately, that is why we are here this evening. And of course, there are now additional questions to be answered. I could spend hours discussing with you how the APPR process of teachers and administrators is a punitive model that has been thrown over every single educator regardless of past performances and success with students. APPR has narrowed the curriculum with an overemphasis on English and mathematics preparation, which eliminates educating the whole child with a comprehensive curriculum experience and has a negative impact on the social sciences, science, and of course, the arts. APPR does not place emphasis on teachers' ability to reach and engage children, but about the content of the curriculum, but it is on tests that have been proven to lack validity. It is an unreasonable measuring stick for teachers and administrators, as the exams contain material which I have heard you admit the students are expected to answer but have not yet been part of their curriculum. APPR is defective, as scores were used this year to rate principals and teachers, in which, Mr. Commissioner, you were uncanny in predicting a 30% drop in student results.
30 seconds.
APPR ignores the research which has shown that student test scores are not a strong predictor of quality teaching. Therefore, I cannot comprehend why children are placed in the middle of this evaluation process, being used like lab rats in this flawed experiment. I could go on. Principals are not numbers, teachers are not numbers, and we should certainly not make our students feel like a number. Just like your prediction in the drop of our children's scores this year, you are pathetic in predicting a time of crisis in our educational system 2 years ago. You had a hand in both. Commissioner King, you must now know that there is a crisis in confidence and direction in our children's education. It begins with you, and that is why we are here tonight. Finally,
finish up, Joe.
History has always shown us that great leaders arise in a time of crisis. So yet now you have a chance to reflect upon all that has been said and presented, to provide our children and their educators with the quality, professional leadership they deserve. I hope that we can count on you.
Okay.
Well done.
Yep.
Regarding data privacy, Terry Harling, ESM.
Good evening. My name is Terry Harling. I am the parent of a second grader and a fifth grader here at ESM. I was asked to speak about data sharing, and I will, but first I'd like to speak a little bit about my son. He's 10 years old. He has the biggest, brightest blue eyes that I've ever seen. I am here because I don't want to see that light in his eyes dimmed. Right now, he wants to be a doctor. I'm sure that according to Pearson's vision, he's not on track. You see, he has ADD. He does very well in most subjects, but he's drowning in math. Everything is a word problem. Everything from simple addition on has been turned into a multi-step nightmare for kids like him. Why is math no longer math? Why do kids like my son have to feel less than every day because someone decided that they have to pick apart every little example until it isn't even recognizable anymore? He's not stupid, but he tells me that he feels that way. And if he feels that way, I know that there are thousands more that do too. This reform is particularly difficult for kids with special needs. We fought for IEPs for our children so that they can be met where they are. We disclosed personal and medical information to our schools so that our children could receive the help that they need. This brings me to In Bloom. My child, along with thousands of others, have medical diagnoses that we have shared with our districts so that our children would be eligible to receive special services. Why are our children's health records not being protected? Why does a doctor's office need my consent to share my child's information, but New York State Ed believes it does not? Why should we trust that our children's sensitive information will be safe when the very laws that were designed to protect our children's privacy are weakened behind closed doors at the expense of our children to the benefit of private corporations? When will the children actually be considered in all of this? Thank you.
Speaking next, Kim McGurk, Riverhead.
Hello, I came to ask the question about data privacy in that I am a career switcher. My first career was technology and data warehousing. Students, humans, children, adults, anyone are not data points. Humans are never data points. So I want to know, how can families opt out of the New York State Education Department's data dictionary forever, and what is the protocol to do so?
Speaking next, Joanna Testa, Miller Place.
Good evening. My name is Johanna Testa. I'm a proud parent of a 9-year-old son and a grandmother to 3, and they all attend the Miller Place School District. I'm also a newly elected Board of Education trustee. My huge concerns with the educational reforms being discussed tonight and how they are affecting our children, teachers, schools, and budget are what prompted me to run for the board. The Miller Place School District wishes to thank Senator LaValle for his continued support of public education, for coordinating this forum tonight and offering his community the opportunity to meet with the Commissioner and discuss these issues. Commissioner King, recently you acknowledged the heightened concerns parents and school districts have regarding student privacy. Regardless of which vendor the State Education Department chooses to host their data dashboard or student information portal, our educational community is not interested in participating in this state endeavor. We are not interested in increased penalties for security breaches. And as a parent, I do not want my child's data collected and warehoused. Why are we rushing into this huge initiative when so many have concerns and unanswered questions? How can you guarantee that attendance, discipline, and health records will remain secure and private? How long will the data be retained? Will it be stripped of identifiable information after a certain period of time? Will this data be forwarded to colleges? Who is advocating on behalf of the students when these issues are discussed? Lastly, Commissioner King, would you consider creating a process by which a school district can prove to the State Education Department that information contained in such dashboards is already being provided to our parents via our own district-supported parent portals? Such a process would eliminate the need for the state to provide this information to the third-party vendor and never risk a breach of security or a penalty to be assessed. Thank you.
Speaking next, Candace Donin, Mount Sinai.
Good evening. My name is Candace Donin, and I am a white suburban mom that lives in Mount Sinai. As a parent, I have many responsibilities. I am responsible for providing guidance and support as my children grow from childhood into young citizens of the United States. I am responsible for instilling a love of learning and exposing them to an enriching education. I now have a new responsibility: to protect my children's private information from In Bloom, a board that is not governed by elected bodies and who are not accountable to anyone, even our elected officials. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine that I would have to advocate for my children's privacy in this manner. InBloom is configured to collect extremely sensitive, personally identifiable student data. It is difficult to understand how students would benefit from having such personal information about them shared with for-profit corporations, but it is clear that such disclosure could harm students. When school districts signed up for Race to the Top, the grant application made no mention of contracting with InBloom. Why was control taken away from local school districts? New York is officially the worst state when it comes to my child's privacy. 7 of the 9 states that originally signed on have now either pulled out or are giving districts a choice. Why is New York the only state with no opt-out provision for families or for districts? I've heard you say, Dr. King, that you share our concerns about security, but that collecting student data is necessary for the good functioning of districts, schools, and states. But why is it only necessary for New York and not for other states that have pulled out? I resent that New York State usurped my parental authority. These are my children, not properties of the state. Your empty reassurances that the information is encrypted and that InBloom will keep my child's private, personal, confidential data secure means nothing in today's world where databases are easily hacked. And why didn't InBloom show up at the recent hearing in Albany?
Candace, start wrapping up.
A simple Google search of data and hacked turned up 8 million results, and we parents do not trust the state education department to safeguard our children's privacy. I can't sleep at night knowing this. How do you?
Commissioner, we're finishing up this, so you want to comment on these last 2 areas? And then we have 5 speakers and miscellaneous. So why don't you...
Sure. Sure, a few points on the annual professional performance review law. When the governor, legislature, state education department, and NYSET committed to the law, the commitments included that we would have multiple measures for evaluating educators. Test scores alone would not determine the teacher's evaluation, but rather students' growth and learning would be a factor in teacher and principal evaluation. And that would be assessed both through growth on state tests, where there are state tests for that 20% of teachers, or locally determined measures of student growth. So that was our agreement, and then all the decisions, the rest of the decisions about the evaluation system were left to local decision making. In many districts, the decisions were made to use rubrics for teacher observation that were long in existence, whether it was the Danielson rubric or another, so that administrators could observe teachers and give them feedback on a range of elements of their performance. And that information would have the most significant weight in the evaluation system. I still believe, as we agreed to with the governor, the legislature, NYSET, in 2010 and again in 2012, I still believe that student performance should be a factor among the factors used in evaluation. And there is a growing body of evidence across the country of the usefulness of that information. The 2 states that made the largest gains on the NAEP assessment over the last 2 years, the 2 places that made the largest gains were Tennessee and the District of Columbia, 2 places that are ahead of us in the work on teacher and principal evaluation, and also engage very much in the work on the Common Core. On the issue of data security, a few distinctions to make. One is there's a set of data that the state collects either pursuant to federal law or state law or federal regulations or state regulations. That data typically is collected from districts through third parties that hold the data for districts. That data that comes to the state is then used for a variety of purposes, a variety of reporting purposes. The goal of the portal project is to try to make available in all districts what some have already described is available in our most affluent districts. That is a portal that parents can log into, a secure portal that parents can log into to find information about their child, or that teachers can log into for information about their students. Now, those portals already exist in many of our most affluent districts, and they exist typically with third-party providers. Many of those third-party providers don't have in place the same security protections that would be in place in the department's portal project, which will include, what's important to make clear is, right, so the thing to make clear, all of the data that's now collected, what's unfortunate in the discussion about In Bloom and the state's portal project is it's mixed together issues that are quite separate. The question of data security is an important question that applies to all third-party providers, and there are districts, not just in New York, but around the country that have had security breaches. The biggest risk for security breach is typically in a district that has 5 to 10 different data providers that are third-party providers that are providing various services. People have used the same password for multiple services. People leave laptops unattended. People send information attached to non-secure emails. Those are much bigger day-to-day security risks than data systems like the state's data system. Now, the In Bloom, two important points about In Bloom. One is that the data are encrypted in storage within Bloom. They are encrypted in transfer. That is a very high standard for data security, and one that often is not met by many of the third-party providers that hold student data in New York and around the country for school districts. It's also important to emphasize that data that are stored within Bloom cannot be sold. They can't be used for research purposes. They can't be used for marketing purposes. The data are there for the portal purposes only.
All right. Thank you. Bob Vecchio from William Floyd.
Thank you very much, Senator LaValle. Thank you to Eastport-South Manor for hosting this event tonight. Commissioner, Chancellor, Regents, thank you for being here. I want to wish everybody and their families a very happy Thanksgiving, first off. So I want to start off with that. One of the problems with the implementation of Common Core for William Floyd, and it's probably true of most high-needs school districts like William Floyd across the state, was that it was implemented at a time where William Floyd was reeling from $20 million in state aid cuts and the loss of 200 positions in our district over a 2-year period. $100 of those positions and reductions were teachers. We are still trying to recover from those losses, and the loss of that talent has made the reforms that much more difficult for us to implement today. I have a couple of questions and then a request because I want to keep it brief because it's been a long night. Dr. King, you've been to multiple forums, you've heard plenty of feedback and suggestions concerning the reforms surrounding Common Core. What are the substantial changes you think will be made that we can expect? Will there be changes to the funding to help districts have the resources necessary for the reforms, for example, the upcoming park assessments? Will there be changes to the timeliness of the results from the state assessments? And will sufficient data be provided to the teachers about the students' results to drive instruction properly, accurately, and track the patterns and trends? I know you've addressed this, but I felt it was important to mention again. Second, school districts are constantly dealing with unfunded and underfunded mandates, and given the results of the first set of tests, this has put a strain on districts to provide AIS in particular. Will there be relief given to districts to help out with this burden, given the issues with the first round of the exams, And what, if any, other mandate relief can SED provide to districts like William Floyd and districts from around the state, and suggest to the legislature to help free up very limited resources to implement these very reforms? Third, will there be any other changes that we would consider maybe minor changes based on feedback and post-analysis that you would anticipate? My last request. Going forward, will SED look to build a collaborative working committee with teachers and administrators in the field to help be solutions-focused to make the necessary changes for the success of all of our students? If so, I would request that professionals from William Floyd or high-needs districts like William Floyd have a voice at the table, and that the committee is a true cross-section of districts from around the state. Thank you.
Brian Snow, Port Jefferson.
When we began this Common Core initiative, I had volunteered to attend the BOCES training to be a turnkey and bring the program back to our district. As questions and concerns arose about its implementation, I was the one that was assuring others that the kinks will be worked out as we go. When it was revealed that students would be assessed on curriculum that they had not been exposed to, I assured the fearful that the State Ed Department would not let us down. Sorry about that. When answers and support were not forthcoming, I changed my tone. I encouraged parents and teachers to speak up and say it like it is. They must not be aware of what is happening in our classrooms. I assured everyone it would be okay. Once they realized what is happening in our classrooms, they would stop this madness. Do you want to know when I lost all faith in state ed? It's when our revised plan was rejected. Not because of the minor reflective changes we had made, but because of fundamental pieces of our originally approved plan. It was at that point I realized you had not even read our plan last year, this important, crucial document at the heart of the Regent's reform agenda. We were no longer building a plane in midair. We did not have a pilot. Exacerbated, I called on parents and teachers again to besiege our last hope, our lawmakers, to force the change necessary to save public education. Over the past several weeks, you, Commissioner and Chancellor, have heard from students, parents, superintendents, principals, and teachers. Who is on your side? The answer scares me. It's either no one, and that you are so personally invested in your agenda that you will see it through at any cost, and that cost is our children. We have all heard the negative impact of this developmentally inappropriate curriculum and high-stakes testing have had on students. It is imperative that our elected officials stand with parents, educators, and the community to effectuate the change only they have the power to make happen. The alternative is even scarier, that this reform agenda and pressure on public schools is supported by those who would benefit from the privatization of education for their own profit. My question, Commissioner, is what do you believe the role of free public education to be in our society? Thank you.
Students Eric Fennoy, Jacob Balciunas, Sarah Whitworth, Rocky Point. Lucille McKee, Shore and Wading River.
Good evening. First, I'd like to state for the record that the schools from Shore and Wading River East on both forks started their Thanksgiving vacation today, and I feel that this date was a poor choice for the East End schools, or perhaps it was a wise political choice for you. I'm the president of the Shore and Wading River Teachers Association, and I'm also a veteran special ed teacher of more than 38 years, having taught many different areas in high school special education in Nassau and Suffolk. Arnie Duncan would also describe me as a white suburban mother, But I'm also a grandmother, and I, like Miss Beth Dominio, am thrilled that you have awakened the wrath of thousands of mommies. Yet I am here to represent the many mommies that are working 2 jobs to put food on the table, or who have social and emotional problems, or the many mommies that have passed away and changed their children's lives forever. Over the last 38 years, if I've heard my special needs teenagers say this once, I've heard it 1,000 times. I can't take tests. I'm no good at tests. I'm stupid. My answer has always been yes, but you can dismantle a car engine and put it back together before I can even open the manual. Yes, but you can cut and color my hair so no one knows how much gray I have. Yes, but when my computer crashes, you're the person I call. And most importantly, when my toilet backs up, I don't care how many tests you've passed. I only care how fast you can get to my house. You get my point. I have spent 38 years telling my teenage students that society will need them just as much, if not more, than they will need the good test takers. And I also tell them their jobs can never be outsourced to China or the other countries on the labels of the clothes they wear. I think you have focused on the college and careers that you and other private school parents on the Board of Regents deem worthy. But if you ask me and the other regular people, be they white suburban moms, minority dads, or other concerned caretakers, the new high-stake testing will miss an entire population that our society has always needed and will continue to need in the future. So I guess my question is, Dr. King, what would you have me say to those students when they stare down at their high-stakes test and once again believe themselves to be failures? May your car never break down, nor your toilet never back up.
Cynthia McNamara, East Quogue.
My name is Cynthia McNamara, and I am the mother of 2 bright children who attend East Quogue Elementary School. I am here tonight to issue a reality check. We don't have a bunch of billionaire philanthropists funding our programs in our schools. We rely on taxpayers. Since the enactment of the tax cap legislation 2 years ago, the number of teaching jobs we have lost on Long Island is equivalent to the entire teaching staff at Longwood, Sachem, and Brentwood combined. In case you weren't aware, those are the 3 largest districts on Long Island. How are we going to hold our children to higher standards with 30 students in a classroom? Last year, after cutting special education teachers, foreign language, and our school's librarian, our district put a referendum on the budget to take away busing for many of our students so we could hold on to a few teachers for 1 more year. It's so bad at our district, our PTA buys the bulk of our art supplies. Now we have the implementation of a whole new curriculum as well as a new teacher and administration review process to pay for. We didn't need it, we didn't ask for it, but we're going to pay for it. And since the state made sure we can't raise taxes to pay for it, we're going to cut more teachers, programs, and supplies from our schools. Most schools on Long Island have already cut AP classes, arts programs, clubs, and sports. If these new, untested, unfunded reforms go forward, enrichment programs as we know them will cease to exist. We will have a bunch of common high school graduates with nothing special for colleges to choose from. There won't be great athletes, amazing musicians, or leaders of student government. If you think this is an exaggeration, then I implore you to speak with administrators and ask them what they have already cut and what is on the chopping block to pay for these untested reforms. My wish is to watch my girls grow into well-rounded, self-confident women who truly can be anything they want to be. Unfortunately, if we are already stripping them of anything that isn't math or ELA related in elementary school, I fail to see how that will be possible. I believe in our schools, and I believe in our teachers. We don't need more mandates, new standards, or more testing. We simply need you to return the teachers, programs, and supplies that were taken from our schools and let our teachers teach. Thank you.
David Gamberg, Southold.
Good evening. David Gamberg, Superintendent of Southold Schools. Thank you, Commissioner King, Chancellor Tisch, Regent Tillis, and Senator LaValle. What is there left to say? After countless hours of testimony throughout the state, numerous articles, requests to slow down, calls for higher standards to keep up with global competition, and the like, the conversation continued this evening. And I may be taking a slightly different tact. My brief remarks focus on what Michael Fullen describes as the right and wrong drivers of education reform. If our stated goal is to prepare our students to be college and career ready, to have New York lead the nation, then we must consider what are the effective drivers of change and what are not. Fullen is explicit and spot on, for success does leave clues. Look for successful organizations in education, and here is what you will find. They do include accountability and assessment, as well as high standards, but they are not the locomotive of what changes results on a statewide basis. Nor is there a system of rewards and punishments, nor is there a premium on high-stakes testing. Quite the opposite. The goals of reform and the intrinsic motivation of all who play a part, students, teachers, families, communities, and civic groups, are aligned to do something personally meaningful. As Fullen states, this is as basic as the human condition. I recognize the social and economic problems that fuel your desire for quick and immediate results. Make no mistake, the focus on standards and testing will not yield the long-term sustained results because they represent the wrong drivers, not necessarily the wrong ingredients. They are just that, ingredients, not the yeast that propels the rising dough, which is a metaphor for our desire to see rising results in our educational system. If I wanted to travel from New York to Washington by train and look for the most effective way by rail to get there, I would be careful about placing the locomotive at the front of the train and not somewhere in the middle with passenger cars on either end. That which drives the process does matter. To get to DC as a passenger, I need both passenger cars and the locomotive. But what is dominant is what counts. The dominant energy that gets me there is the locomotive. Internal motivation, teamwork, capacity building, and the healthy culture of our school communities must conspire to be the locomotive and not the passenger cars in our journey to a better educational system for all New Yorkers. It is not the abandonment of the agenda that I am calling for, but rather a reprioritizing of the components. For it was Cyrus who said almost 2,000 years ago that it is a bad plan that admits no modification. Thank you.
Commissioner, would you like to make?
Actually, Senator LaValle, if it's all right.
Chancellor, yes.
We would like, Regent Tillis would like to speak, and then I think the Commissioner will sum up for us.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Senator LaValle. I have a perspective that I haven't heard anyone express about the regents tonight. I've had a unique perspective as a regent who has had kids in the public schools, one of which just graduated. And I've had a perspective of having a child who was learning 2 grades behind her age level because she's an LD student. So I'm well aware of the problems. In fact, when the federal regulation came out 6 or 7 years ago, regarding teaching special ed kids at their age level rather than where they were learning, I protested immensely. It wasn't a regent's regulation, but I said, how can I go back and tell my daughter that she's going to fail a test? It had, at that point, I didn't even realize the results of a loss of self-esteem would bring. Now, my daughter did just graduate from high school. And she's a freshman in college. And she's not fixing toilets, and she's not fixing cars. She has achieved, through her special education, a great deal, and is going to college. So there's more than just one direction that we have to go. I have taken positions on APPR, even though the legislation was already passed and had to be passed by the regents to sustain the contract we had with the federal government, because I sat on the board until a month ago of the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, and we have the most rigorous evaluations probably of any place in the country. 100,000 national board certified teachers. And we use all kinds of multiple measures to measure student growth. It's important to have that. And I supported the rigorous evaluation that was in the 60%. I had a problem with using a state assessment test as opposed to other measures. So I'm on track with where you are in a large amount. However, I went this morning, and I'm out in districts virtually every day. I've had the luck to be a regent that, even though we're not paid, I've had the luck to be out there every day and get the kind of input from thousands of teachers and administrators and students and parents over the last 8 years. I've gotten 3,000 letters from parents just in the last 3 weeks, individual letters. I can't say I've read them all. I've read a few of them, and I count them, because I know what's in them. I've talked to people. But I do believe that the Common Core is an engine that really needs to be passed. I worked with the Chancellor on a committee before the Common Core was even broached on English language standards for the state of New York, much of which was then translated into the Common Core, and I think a lot of what we do, some of it obviously needs tweaking. We need to have some adjustments. It's the first year. But I went this morning to a school district in your area, an elementary school, where the Common Core, 3rd grade, 4th grade, I went to different classrooms and watched these kids and the excitement that they had, and the teachers who had a great deal of excitement. And this is not the only district that has that, but I've also been in districts where it isn't the case, and I think that maybe some of you reflect. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership in the district. This district that I went to this morning started 3 years ago on the Common Core, started 3 years ago. And I think by now the teachers are adjusting and tweaking the modules and using them effectively. I'm not saying that the Common Core is the be-all and end-all, but it certainly is the goal that we need to move on. And I think that we're making a mistake by saying that the implementation of the Common Core, including the assessment part and the evaluation part, a lot of which I have a problem with, is the same as the Common Core. And I think we need to really evaluate those things together and really make sure that the Common Core is ultimately where we are headed, no matter what kind of process that we use. And I think we need to look at the process. We have been looking at the process, and we will continue to look at the process and make corrections. So the one thing I would say before I give the microphone over to John is I feel very strongly that we shouldn't be looking just at college and career readiness, that we need to have readiness to be a citizen of this country and readiness to live a fulfilled life, which includes social studies and art and music and phys ed, things that are being cut out of our districts, maybe because of the property tax cap, maybe not, maybe there isn't a priority for those things, but I have been pushing for those things, and I think we need to continue pushing for those things. So I think you need to just, I can't say calm down because I agree with you, but at the same time, you might be more effective if you work in the system a little bit, work with your legislators, work with the governor, people who have passed legislation that the regents have had to implement. So that's all
Thank you.
I'm saying. Thank you for your attention.
Commissioner, do you want to take a couple of minutes and give us some observations? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Two things. Thank you, Senator. I just want to thank you again, Senator, for hosting tonight, and Assemblyman, for your taking time to join us. I appreciate.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Commissioner, there are people here that would like to hear some concluding remarks.
So just, I will say that these forums, although contentious clearly, have generated an important conversation. The regions and the department will continue to make adjustments as we move the work forward. We already have made some, we'll continue to make others, as will all of the states that are implementing the Common Core. And I want to make the distinction between disagreeing and not listening. There may be places where we disagree. Look, we believe that student performance should play a role in teacher and principal evaluations. That may be a place where we disagree. But disagreeing isn't the same as not listening. We hear the different perspectives. We hear the concerns. We will address those that we can. Finally, I want to thank Eastport-South Manor for hosting us. And thank the students who helped us with the timekeeping and announcing the speakers.
Commissioner, thank you. I want to thank again, and I think we really should give all the students, why don't you just stand up so we can properly recognize you. Thank you. Thank you. And our signers who have been signing all night, thank you. Commissioner, I want to see if I can do it in 2 minutes. Keep the clock on me. I just want to make some observations. At the hearing, the Senate hearing in Brentwood at Suffolk Community College, I had indicated that the department was not listening. I would say to you what I said as a young administrator to my faculty, that when a parent comes to you, listen, and when a mother comes before you, really listen keenly. What is disturbing is that the federal government is parachuting over state and local school districts. This state has always been, and someone commented about this, a local control education system. And so it's very disturbing when we're getting comments from Washington on what we need to do.
You know, my mother said to me once, son, there is no free lunch. And we are learning that the dollars that we got are just not worth losing control over what's best for our students, our parents, and our educators. The massive changes in education need to be better synchronized, and that means proper timing. And what we really need, and several people said this, is a delay. We need a delay so we can get everyone in sync. Parents, and this has been, and I hear this all the time, particularly about math, they need to learn the new language so they can help their students. They're lost. The parents need some sort of help. So we're going to look at how can we bring back some money so school districts can have meetings to educate their parents on how to deal with their students. Commissioner, this is critically important to me. Long Island has made a huge investment in education. Our schools are performing. We can adjust to new standards, but do not injure our children because we want to help or the department wants to help non-performing schools. We have always been able to, through local control, and this has been mentioned, meet high standards. Recently published 2,000 high schools in the country, the best high schools. And when I looked at the list, it was Long Island, New York schools, but Long Island over and over and over again. So I appreciate the time that you and the Chancellor, Regent Tillis, have taken to listen. I hope that within a very short period of time, you can reinstate the hope and faith that people have in our government system, that their input counts and that they can make a difference. Keep faith with them, Commissioner. Thank you.
I guess we passed the legislation. I guess we passed it.